Paula Flo, Executive Director of the Hitting Stops Here, a campaign for teaching kindness and respect in schools everywhere. And today I have a guest. This is Mr. Michael Murphy. He's an activist, a filmmaker, a politician, I think, too. Are you a politician?
Not a politician, but I'm very active politically.
Okay, well, yes. And on the side of doing what is good for the American citizens. And most of you who have watched my shows, you know that we are all about the safety and well-being of children, developing human beings. And my work is for having children protected from sanctioned assault and battery. And Michael, on the other hand, his work has a lot to do with children and everybody else, children and adults. And he is going to talk to us today about geoengineering. Is that right, Michael?
It's geoengineering, but commonly referred to as the chemtrail issue.
The chemtrail issue. And, you know, Michael, before I brought this to your attention, were you aware that American school children in 19 U.S. states were being beaten by their educators?
I was not aware at all. It was much of a surprise to me. I thought that was something of the past
Yes.
that we did away with. So
Yes.
I'm glad that you brought that to my attention because I think it's a very serious issue.
A very serious issue. And it just amazes me that so many people, even Michael Murphy, an activist himself, had no idea that our American school children were being harmed in this manner. And here he's trying to protect children and everyone else. I mean, this is a global issue, not a national issue, a global issue. And our children need protection so that we have a world left behind for them that works, that they could actually breathe and grow products and thrive in this world. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And first of all, what are chemtrails? What are they?
Chemtrails are aerosol disbursement from airplanes, and geoengineers are proposing spraying 10 to 20 million tons of toxic aluminum oxide and other chemicals and particles into our sky for what they say is the stated goal of cooling the planet. However, a number of studies are now coming in indicating that putting that particulate into our sky will temporarily create regional cooling, but an overall cost of the warming of the planet, those aerosols act as a blanket. We've seen nighttime highs greatly increase since these programs have gone into full-scale deployment in about the late 97, 98 area. So it's a deep concern of ours because of those toxins. These programs are a tremendous threat on our ecosystem and also human health. And we've seen profound changes since they've been putting these chemicals into our skies.
That is so sad. And how would you say this is affecting, okay, we have little Johnny living in Mississippi who's being struck by his American educator, who's being fed GMO foods. And now what is little Johnny breathing in?
Well, tests have shown that lab tests of blood and also hair follicle, that the chemicals from these programs are not only showing up in our environment, but after they're sprayed, they come down into the air that we breathe. They get inhaled, and because they're submicron particles, they pass right through our barriers, natural barriers that we have, the blood-brain barrier, and also our lungs have protective barriers in them. So they pass right through, and they're showing up in very high quantities, again, in blood and hair follicle tests. I'll turn this off.
Okay. So, Michael, let's think about little Leroy or little Johnny living in Mississippi. Okay, he's being fed GMO foods. He's in a school where teachers are allowed to strike him. And now we have chemtrails flying over little Johnny's school. What's going on, aside from the being struck on his buttocks and eating foods that are already proven to be harmful? What is little Johnny breathing in?
Well, unfortunately, he's breathing in, and lab tests from around the world have been coming in, hair follicle tests and blood tests, revealing what many are calling the chemtrail geoengineering footprint. Chemicals of aluminum, barium, and strontium. These are very toxic to human health, also to ecology. But in terms of what little Johnny is breathing in, aluminum is very toxic. It's accumulative in the body, and it will disturb neurological functions, thought processes, other processes, and then mixed in with the aluminum and the barium, it will affect will affect our immune system.
Oh,
So again, these are showing up in tests from both adults and children in very high levels. They're very toxic, and they do affect the way that we think, and then the way that we're able to fight off disease.
Okay. So now we have little Johnny and little Leroy. They're in Mississippi. They are breathing in poisons. They're eating poisons. When teachers strike them, their endocrine system secretes toxins in their bodies. So when you think about all of this going on, what is a mother to do?
Well, I think the greatest thing that we can do, is be aware and spread the consciousness about all of these issues that are affecting us and our children. And in doing so, we can encourage others to take action. There are a lot of very serious issues out there. We can fight many of them, and we can address many of them. Right now, these toxins are in the air that we breathe. They're showing up. We do have a choice of what we can eat. That can be challenging sometimes, especially in the school system. We do not have a choice with the air that we breathe. Unfortunately, we're sucking up these heavy metals from the chemtrail geoengineering programs with every breath that we take.
So now, when you explain a little bit more so parents know just how serious this issue is, because they can't see it. If you're walking down the street, do you know you're walking through or breathing in a chemtrail?
Well, some of us do, and when you see the very long trails in the sky that do not dissipate and they actually spread out and block out the sun from airplanes, most of those are aerosols from geoengineering programs. So it's very important to become aware of this issue, but many have woken up from my first film titled "What in the World Are They Spraying?", which is available on YouTube. We had to make it free. But why is this so significant? What these programs do, they destroy natural systems. And in doing so, corporations and other entities can actually genetically modify, if you would, natural systems. So it comes under the control of corporations and man. So what they're doing, they're according to geoengineer David Keith, he said geoengineering gives man godlike power. So in doing this and changing the composition of our atmosphere, which does give these abilities, these corporations, the ability to corporatize our weather, they can control every natural system. If you control the weather, you can control every food supply and every political system. So there's no question, based on the challenges that many farmers are now seeing, these programs sterilize our soil and diminish our ability to grow natural organic foods. What we're seeing with a stress-resistant seed that will grow in a toxified soil that is toxified by heavy metals will grow. Unfortunately, these programs also change the pH of soils. This new seed will grow in that environment. And through weather control and the corporatization of our weather, it not only creates weather disturbances, several deviations outside of what would be considered normal. That's why we're having hurricanes, more tornadoes, more weather disasters. But it also has a profound effect in terms of drought. So there's a new GMO drought-resistant seed. So there's no question genetically modified seed companies are profiting from this. And again, it's an agenda to take away our ability to live naturally off of the land so that corporations gain this power and control.
I see. Now that's a pretty scary thing. Now you said they can cause droughts. And you said something about a seed. Could you explain that a little more? What is this seed that they have that is drought resistant, and what is the purpose of making a drought resistant seed?
Well, Monsanto and other seed companies are saying, well, because we have droughts now in certain regions aren't able to grow food. So we're going to produce a seed which will be able to grow in that region. What they do, they make a seed that's a terminator seed, so it won't reproduce. So once a farmer gets devastated by a drought, they will be forced to go into this initially low-priced seed. However, they will not be able to germinate their own seeds, and year after year after year, they will have to purchase from this corporation. So they're literally locked in. In terms of droughts, there's no question that geoengineering creates floods in certain areas and droughts in other areas. Every geoengineer that has been researching this is open about that. Unfortunately, we have winners and losers. Some of the losers are, according to geoengineers, countries like Africa and Asia. And it's a very effective political tool because if, let's say you have an African country that wants to remain sovereign, they want to continue holding on to their natural organic seeds, but if you control the weather and if you create a drought in that region, within a year or two, that country will be begging to corporatize the seeds, and they will be forced to go into a different political system, and that's what we see coming to fruition. So again, if certain entities, corporations, and corporations do control our government, there's no question about that. So through that, they have the ability to literally consolidate an enormous amount of both political and monetary power into the hands of a few, and that's what we see coming into fruition.
I see. Now, you mentioned this as an example in Africa. So we're here safe and sound in America. Can we have a drought here of that magnitude where Americans can actually get to a point where we're begging for this seed and they could decide to give it to us or not? And I mean, it sounds like they have the power to starve us to death. Is that a possibility?
Well, it definitely is when you give this type of power, godlike power, into the hands of corporations who may have a depopulation agenda. We really put our faith into a system that is not a loving system, and it's not based on our creator. It's this corporate system. Is it happening in the U.S.? Well, if we look at some of the political changes and also the corporate changes that occurred last year in the Midwest within the flooding, those floods wiped out a lot of farmers. Through these farmers being devastated, many of them were not able to recoup. And the federal government, along with one of companies that George Soros leads, bought that farmland at pennies on the dollar. So weather control is a very effective way to grab land and take land away from landowners. But we found there was a genetically modified seed that will grow late in the season. So those floods occurred late in the spring, early in the summer. So they were not able to replant with natural seeds, but they were able to replant with these seeds from DuPont and Monsanto. If we look at Texas, the droughts that occurred in Texas, many political changes occurred as a result of those droughts, many changes in land ownership, and there were many crops that were wiped out. And what this is an agenda to take away the power from small family farmers, from people who want natural organic seeds, and what they're doing is corporatizing the system. So again, it's about shifting power into the hands of corporations and consolidating power into the hands of a few. Weather control is very effective at that. And I'm actually producing my second film. The first film, What in the World Are the Brain, has been seen by over 10 million people.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
Thank you, yeah. And it's created a worldwide movement. This is something
wonderful
that is so dire. It needs to be addressed. But the question remains, why? Again, they give these entities, through weather control and various forms of controlling nature, they give these entities godlike power. So the next film addresses weather control, and it's called Why in the World Are They Spraying? And it can be seen actually on my website, which is whyangels.info, whyangels.info. It's about a 6-minute trailer. Very powerful meteorologist Scott Stevens, he was a 20-year weatherman, spoke about weather control, how chemtrail geoengineering programs enable these entities to actually control our weather. Unfortunately, these programs are in the best interest of a select few at the expense of everybody on the planet. So it's something that needs to be addressed.
It's basically that 99% concept to the 1%. How serious, how concerned should people be right now? Are they at a point where, say today, they want to have a hurricane or a flood or a drought in America? Do they have the technology to actually create that this week if they felt like?
Well, there's no question this technology is available. As a matter of fact, former Defense Secretary Cohen had stated that there's a new type of eco-terrorist. This is back in the, I believe, the late 80s or early 90s, that can control weather, create earthquakes, and create hurricanes. This information has been available. There actually was an international treaty calling for a ban for weather to be used as a weapon. And it was an international treaty, but it did not, the treaty did not ban countries from using this technology overhead, and that's where the loophole is. So let's say the United States wanted to go and affect weather in a country. In Africa, they could actually disperse aerosols above the U.S. And affect weather 1,000 miles away, and that's how they're getting away from it.
Wow, you know, that's such a sad, I mean, just the word weather and weapon being in the same sentence, you know, using weather as a weapon is so sad. And so sad that that's where we are. You know, I look at, you know, we think of ammunition and all these other things, and to think that now we're already in a position where if they say, well, we want all of the vegetation to die and just keep rain from falling, they could actually keep rain from falling down from the sky now. Is that what you're saying to us?
It absolutely is, and weather was actually used publicly in the program called Project Popeye, where the U.S. military actually destroyed the Ho Chi Minh Trail by raining down 13 feet of rain in less than 1 hour. And that was a very long time ago. We progressed greatly within these technologies. There's actually a military document called Owning the Weather by 2025. That's an expressed interest by our current military. And again, this is not conspiracy theory, these are facts, and I would encourage everybody to actually research this, look up the facts that we're stating, because it's actually available in many sources online.
Can you give them a few jump starts? Like, do you know a website where they can look up a few of the things that you've already said? I know you named one. Are there maybe 2 more resources you could give?
Absolutely, and my work, and I've written many articles and actually produced a lot of videos, which can be found on my website, which is truthmediaproductions.us. Also, 2 websites which have a lot of accurate and incredible information. One is geoengineeringwatch.org. That's geoengineeringwatch.org. And the Coalition Against Geoengineering tends to be outside of the corporate system. So I think that these issues are definitely rooted in the same area, and they're not in the best interest of the people who are affected, the children who are being beaten, the children who are breathing this in, but they are in the best interest for conforming people and controlling people into this corporate system, which again is taking power away from people and bringing it into the hands of a few. So we have to take that power back. We have to address these issues and get active and take back our earth. We are stewards of the earth, and we're also stewards of our children. Why do we give our children over to somebody who would be conforming them into this corporate system? This is our responsibility. Our health and our earth is our responsibility. No question about it. These metals from chemtrail geoengineering programs are showing up everywhere. And again, they're short of nuclear fallout. We have had no greater threat to the planet than these programs. I'm sure after watching the film, you come in agreement with that. But we're at a very vital time in history. We can take back our freedom. We can take back our sovereignty by addressing this both politically. And God, thank you so much, Paula, for everything that you've done. That's incredible. And I'm learning from you about how to take this more into the political realm. So I'm going to be picking your brain. But we're at a very vital time. And why are we giving up our children to this system? Why are we giving up our sovereignty as human beings to breathe in these toxins and be transported into this political system? We have to exercise our power.
Yes.